Monday, everybody. It's time for another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. Mike, before we start, you know I have to do my little like and subscribe to this video. Okay, when I say like the video, Mike, we get like 90% more likes. And people say, Courtney, I am liking the video. You're doing your job, and I love that. And it helps us out as well. Mike, I've told you this before. There's two sections of the fan base right now with Arkansas baseball. There's some that are hitting the panic button and hitting it hard and fire Dave Van Horn, fire Nate Thompson, fire those people. There's another section of the fan base that's going, oh, everything is fine, everything is great, everything is wonderful.
I think there's an answer somewhere there in the middle.
There's got to be an answer somewhere in the middle. We're going to get to that, right? Because one of the sides of that coin is our first question. It's from Mousetown, everybody's favorite question asker, or least favorite question asker, I should say. They ask, what is going on with Van Horn? This is one of the most talented teams he's had, but these guys are unfocused and undisciplined. He needs to kick some butt instead of being so calm.
Well, that's not really his style. Now, it's interesting because when he first came here, and for about the first 2 or 3 years, he really was this fiery, angry guy that would just chew players out, and they didn't like it. You know, some of the ones that had played under Dave Van Horn, Norm DeBryan, didn't like the way this was going. But he modified and calmed down a little bit. Plus, we don't know if what he's saying in these press conferences is what he's saying to them. You know, he may be mad behind the scenes and we don't know. But it's generally not his style. But here's the crazy part of all this, and I'm going to reel this off. Arkansas leads the SEC in hitting with a .320 team average. That's 9 percentage points better than LSU at second at .311. They're third in team ERA behind Texas and Tennessee, and they continue to lead the SEC in fielding percentage. So what the heck is going on? They've gone 3-6 over the last 3 series, but they've scored a total of 58 runs. Their opponents have scored 53. It doesn't really make sense until you look closer. For one thing, when these guys win, they win big. They score lots of runs, and when they lose games, they tend to be low-scoring games. There's some exceptions, but like when they beat Georgia 13-3, but then lost 7-6 and 7-6. I mean, you scored more runs, but you lost 2 games. So a .320 team batting average doesn't do you a lot of good, especially in these game threes, when all you need is a run or 2 or whatever, and you've got your best guy up there and he doesn't do anything. You know, they were down by 4 runs in the top of the 9th against Florida. And who was at the plate with the bases loaded?
Gohio Lloyd.
Yes, so you hit a home run there and the game's tied. And he hits it, but it just comes up a little bit short. He misses it by about, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 feet.
Yeah.
Fitz hits it further. So some of it may be a little bit of bad luck. But some of it is also guys that just, I don't know, you can get a hit and have your average up higher when when nobody's on base. But that helps your team batting average, but you're not scoring a run off of that. And the same thing with pitching. I mean, the pitching tends not to be bad overall, but you'll usually find 1 or 2 critical points in the game where somebody started to walk a guy, hit a guy, and then all of a sudden they give up a 2-run double. And it's after that they're pulled out of the game. And that's what has a lot of these fans so frustrated.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that because I believe there's another question about the decision-making of taking pitchers out of the game. But, Mike, I think some of it is inconsistency. Is you've got to get some consistency there, especially with your offense.
I mean,
because
look at the fact that you're leading the SEC in defense, and then you make these critical errors that cost you runs.
Well, you're also leading the SEC in batting average, right? But you're talking about an offense that has really big innings, right?
And then
you had 3 or 4 good innings.
You're up 5-1.
Yeah.
And then you don't score another run for the rest of the game.
Thank you. And so that's the point I'm getting at here is that inconsistency on offense is what's driving me mad. And I know it's probably driving Dave Van Horn and Nate Thompson mad as well, because that's how you're going, whoa, how are they getting so hot and then all of a sudden it's nothing? You can't have just 3 quality innings of offense out of 27 innings in a series.
I know.
So.
But Dave Van Horn's sending mixed messages because he's saying things like after that second game he was talking about, well, we shouldn't strike out. We didn't strike out, and this is how we won the game. We've been striking out too much. But there's plenty of evidence in that game 3 that the longer it went on, the more the batters reverted back to, I got to hit a home run.
Yeah.
I got to hit a home run. And I don't think it's going to change until that changes, because I think the word is out on these guys. I think the word is out. But Florida's pitchers were not good in that game.
No, they're
And
no.
Arkansas was just looking pitiful against those guys, and I think it was because they had a game plan. These guys are going to try to hit home runs. Let's put it up high around the chin, and you're so anxious to swing, it looks like it's coming, and you swing at it. Or it drops, it looks like it's on the edge, I got to get it. And then you swing and miss. And then maybe they put a change up down the middle, and you're swinging so aggressive, you're way ahead of it.
I will say this. I said this on Evan Kamiko's show earlier in the week when he had me on to talk about the Gators, and I will say a little bit of credit to them is that where they are right now is not where they started, right? They were dealing with so many injuries to that pitching staff and to starting pitchers as well early on in the season that they were having to figure it out a little bit. Now when you get those pieces back, and not only back but healthy, completely healthy, they're looking like a different team. Do I think they were better than Arkansas? No. We're going to get into a little bit of that here. As Giles says, I don't know if it's Hobbs or Van Horn, but once again, they don't make pitching changes until after the damage was done. You just made that point, Mike. Florida's coach took the opposite approach, and after giving up 5 runs in the first 2 innings, he managed to shut Arkansas out over the next 7.
You know, I've seen that, and O'Sullivan is famous for that. He does that a lot. I've seen coaches do that and seen it backfire on them. So it's a real risky thing to do. But it worked for him. But I think, honestly, Arkansas helped him because these 2 pitchers shouldn't have been doing what they were doing. I'm not saying Arkansas should have scored 10 or 12 runs, but to not score for 7 innings and you just watch these guys and it looks like they're doing their work for them. Also, we don't know. We know that you see a batter up there, he stops between each pitch and looks at the dugout. Okay, he's getting some kind of signal. Okay, this is what we think's coming next. And so you know it's a guessing game. We think he's going to throw this pitch. He's there thinking they're thinking I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do that, and it's a guessing game going on. And it looks like to me Arkansas is getting outguessed. Because it's just when a pitcher is not that good, but he's just baffling you, and especially one of those critical situations, I think it may have been Vahiva Aloy, but the strike 3 was a changeup, and he was just way out in front of it because he was trying to knock the cover off the ball, and you just got to be more disciplined than that. You got to know. I think some of it is doing a better job of knowing what's coming because you've done your homework against them. You should know, okay, he does this in this situation that Kevin O'Sullivan tends to do. I mean, Van Horn's been around this guy for years. He does this here. This is what we're going to do. It's just not working. That's all I know. I can't see. We can't get in there and have a tape recording and record all the stuff that's said from Florida's side and Arkansas' side and know what caused that situation to happen, that strikeout or that ground ball that didn't go anywhere or that fly ball that didn't go anywhere. We don't know for sure what was going on there, but it just looks like Arkansas's guessing wrong or some of it's being too aggressive and just you can't control yourself. You want to hit the cover off the ball so bad. We see these violent swings, and a lot of people are saying, why can't we have a more measured swing? If you have to choke up a little bit and hold up a little bit on that changeup, look for it, and then whack, it's out of there. Because if you throw a changeup and somebody's looking for it, boom, it's gone.
It's interesting what's going to happen moving forward now because this was a series that I thought, okay, they can win it and get back on track a little bit before going into such a gauntlet of a schedule for the end of the year where you have Texas coming up this weekend, you have LSU, you have Tennessee. I mean, it's a little stressful right now.
Absolutely.
Because I did not think this team would be, like many people out there, like many people on the internet, you just
It's
did
been
not
since
see.
2016 that they've lost 3 straight series. You know, I think 2016 was the year they didn't go anywhere. No postseason.
Oh,
I'd
don't
have to
tell
go
me
back
that.
and look, but
Don't tell me that, Mike. Razor Alex 88, who told us last week that his confidence level in the Razorbacks had dropped 50% to losing to both Georgia and A&M, now says this. All right, Razor Alex 88. He goes, my overreaction for the week, 3rd straight series loss. Surely someone's head must be on the chopping block. Confidence level in this team, not 50% anymore. It's
He's down to
25%, Mike.
well, nobody's head is on the chopping block because Arkansas is still tied for 2nd in the SEC. So if they break out of this, then this is going to be viewed in retrospect kind of a speed bump. And once you're over a speed bump, you're over it. However, now you're going up against a team that looks to me after watching, and look, they didn't dominate A&M. They just won all 3 games. They did, and that's what baseball is. And when Arkansas was winning, they were coming up with the runs they needed at critical times, and now they're not doing that. But Texas is doing that. They got a huge lead over everybody. You're not going to catch them. I don't think anybody can catch them. They'd have to just start losing left and right, and it doesn't look like they're going to do that. They're so good that if they absolutely could sweep Arkansas. You do that, and they're dead in the water. So they've got to figure out a way to get these guys focused. The errors, what are you doing making those errors when you're the best fielding team in the SEC? Why, when you have the best batting average in the SEC, are you coming up so empty for 7 straight innings?
Yeah.
What is going on there? What is going on with your pitchers when you generally have a good ERA, but then you look and what you see when you look closer at some of these guys is you see when you look at the stats, you see a lot of hit batters, you see a lot of walks, and then you see multiple RBIs, hits on the tail end of that, and you don't see somebody going, oh, he walked a guy, I think he's been in for 3 innings, okay, I'm going to bring somebody else in. Now, some of that maybe the way Gage Wood pitched is encouraging.
Okay.
But he was on a pitch count because he'd been off. He only went a third of an inning in that first game. So they're not going to take him out there and throw him 70 pitches. So he went 40, I think.
Yeah.
So he goes 3 innings. Okay, what if against Texas he can go 6? Then maybe if you bring Gackle in, maybe he can go the rest. And then you don't have to use him there. You can use him in game 3. Because that's really where they got into trouble. Because they had to use Jimenez, they had to bring him in for 2 innings, and then you don't have him available the next day, and then you're trotting out McIntyre, and then what's up with Wiggins? I mean, he's hurt now, and I mean, when you're a fastball guy, when you're a 100-mile-an-hour guy, and you start, oh, my arm, something's wrong with that, could be serious.
Yeah.
So again, what I'm hearing from a lot of fans, because I read this mostly on Facebook because I'm friends with so many of them, so I can read what they're saying to each other, and they're just, what is going on inside that room they have out there where they do the pitching, that thing we can't see, that big indoor workout.
Oh, the indoor facility. Yeah.
Where they've got all these gizmos and things like that. What is going on there where we end up with guys always hurt? Now, is that a thing that happens to all pitching staffs or just Arkansas? Because there's been a lot of guys with injuries.
And you talk about it over the years, too. I mean, it's not just like, oh, it's a one-off year. I feel like we talk about injuries with the pitching staff.
With pitchers all the time.
All the time. Every year, Mike. Every year. So it just begs the
question.
question.
So, for instance, are they too fascinated with the 199, 98-mile-an-hour guys? Because let me tell you something. If you can't locate a 99-mile-an-hour fastball, if you groove that right down the middle, they'll still take it out on you. I've seen it happen too many times. You can be throwing 99, but you've got to put that ball in certain parts of the plate. If you got it dropping down, or if you can get it to rise up and they might swing at it or whatever. But you can't just throw that thing down the middle or pow, it gets tattooed. Yeah. So what about looking at somebody that's a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, but they locate really well?
I mean,
that's what I don't see when I look at most of Arkansas's pitchers. I don't see consistently locating the ball where you need to locate it. I don't see that happening. I see all over the place. I mean, is it Vital Sheeds?
Landon Jackson.
Vital
You
Sheeds,
got it.
okay.
You got it.
When he lets go of the ball, I don't think he knows where it's going. I don't.
Okay.
I'm watching him, and it's like a beautiful pitch, and then the next pitch goes so far outside. You're like, if it had been a left-handed batter, you'd have bonked him.
Yeah.
You know, and so you've got a guy throwing the ball, and I don't know that the catcher knows, that Dave Van Horn knows, that he knows where that ball is going each time he throws it. That's a little bit disconcerting.
Yeah, maybe a lot of it there. We're going to talk about the pitching because I believe there's another question a little bit later on about Gage Wood and how he did and how that might be maybe the bright spot of a series this weekend. Cajun Hog says, I appreciate the fact that Kendall Diggs showed a lot of loyalty by coming back to Arkansas after his surgery, but he can't hit anymore. I can't believe DVH put him in the lineup in such an important series. He looks at strikes and swings at balls.
Well, that's the perception, that Dave Van Horn he's not cutthroat enough. He's trying to put a guy out there who showed a lot of loyalty. I'm going to give him a chance to succeed.
But hasn't he also said that before? Hasn't he said that in press conferences?
I don't know, but I mean, he's just not cutthroat. That's the perception, that he's got to be tougher. Yeah, I encourage you to stay, and you did all this work in the off season, but guess what? You got to produce, and you're not. So I'm sorry, but it looks like you wasted your time because we're still trying to win games. And I know what he's thinking. You keep putting him out there and you think something's going to click, something's going to catch fire. But you can only do that for so long. And it's the same thing with pitchers. I think he's trying to show faith in them, and it's very disconcerting when you pull a pitcher after just a few innings and you show you don't have much faith in him. And there used to be this idea you got to show faith in your pitchers. Well, you don't. If you've got an instinct and you've been there before and you say, wait a minute, when he walks back-to-back guys, he's in trouble. If he does that historically, that means he's about to give up a 2-run double. Mm-hmm. So let me pull him now. And a lot of times he doesn't, and then you end up with that problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think that to me is the more baffling one of the two, because I'm just going, why are we not going out and pulling him quicker? But then you're right. You talk about the Sully hand where you pull him too quick, and then
I know it's there's no easy answer there, but I'm just telling you that's the perception by a lot of fans, is that he's not cutthroat enough.
Well, I feel like he has mentioned, I could be wrong, but if someone out there knows better than me on this, but I feel like he has mentioned before at least one press conference that he has put guys in the lineup to see if they get, he's felt like he's seen something good of them in BP, and he's like, all right, we're going to see if we can get something going. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you maybe shouldn't do that in these big series. Maybe for a midweek game, that's fine, but big series.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hog Redneck says, last week you mentioned the slump that Brent Iredale was in, but you said he's going to come out of it. Since Game 3 against the Aggies, he is hitting better. Is the slump over, Mike?
Okay, in the last 5 SEC games, he's gone 5 for 17. That's a batting average of .294. A lot better than when we talked about this last week, in which it was 120. Yeah. So it's back up. So that looks good. But he's still in the which game was it? It wasn't in the Game 3. It must have been in Game 1. Yes. He was 0 for 5.
Yeah, I think so. It was in Game 1.
He's still having these games in which he just doesn't do anything. You'd like a little more consistency.
Yeah, so positive there. There's the positive, but too early to say if he's completely out of that slump yet. But going on an upward trend, we hope. Hill Country Razorback ass, and I love that name, by the way. Great name. What did you think about Gage Wood's bounce back against Florida? DVH limited his pitch count. I hope he can go longer against Texas. It would make my day if we could win this series.
Yeah, we just talked about that. They pulled him after 3 innings and 42 pitches. And I understand that, because the last thing, with all the problems you got right now, you certainly don't want him to do something to his arm. But because he only went 3 innings, you got to bring Gabe Gackle in the 4th, and then they had to lift him when he started struggling a bit in the 7th. So if Wood goes 5 innings in that game, and so next week against Texas, maybe he does, maybe Van Horn doesn't have to use Jimenez, and he's available on Sunday. So hopefully we'll see something like that.
It'd be nice. I mean, you definitely, you've got to be cautious with these guys, right? Because you don't want Gage Wood going and re-hurting himself, especially right now at this point in the season. So I think, yes, it would have been nice to see a little bit more, but I think playing it safe was good. They still won the game. So,
Yep.
So they still won the game. Nico Emaliava's exit from Tennessee, a big talking point last week, but Brother Madden's spurring a lot of conversation too, because how's Arkansas's AD and how he is handling it. So Hot Dogger says, Yurachek sent out a message that there would be repercussions if so-called athlete welched on his commitment, but still expected the school to pay out funding. Arkansas Edge must have seen an issue and didn't want to get burned.
I think Yurachek saw the issue, and give him credit, because they brought this kid in, and that it's very unusual for Arkansas to pay a backup quarterback $500,000.
Yeah, well,
like
basically like a third string, because it looked like KJ was going to be the backup, you
I
know?
mean, but I think, here's what I think happened there. I think Petrino really liked him and said, hey, I want to bring him in here. We'll give him what he wants. And I think Yurachek went, okay, but that's a whole lot of money. And I don't think at that point, he knew nothing about what Nico was going to do. So I don't think he knew about that. But I think he had already basically decided, we need a buyout contract. We need a buyout in these NIL deals. And so he put it in there. I'm told that it was well written. That doesn't mean that it is, but that's what I was told. And that it will hold up. They believe it will hold up.
Well, a lot of schools have that. A lot of schools have a buyout clause.
But they don't enforce
But they don't enforce them. And we can
where
get into
he's
that.
getting a lot of they're giving him a lot of credit for stepping up and say he's going to do that now. And I mean, he's getting some credit from some big time names across college football. A lot of fans that aren't fans of Arkansas are suddenly jumping up and saying, yes, this is what should have been done all along.
National media is giving him credit.
But here's part of the issue. Some are saying that other schools are reluctant to do this because you will get a reputation of having these contracts, and then, so if I go to Arkansas and get a big NIL money, they might just, if I get a better offer somewhere, I might be in a position where I can't take it.
Or let's say you leave for an actual reason, right? Let's say you leave because, okay, you want to be closer to home because your grandmother just died or something horrible. I'm just giving you a reason like that. Does that mean Arkansas is going to enforce it then? Or is it a case by case? What does it mean for me?
There's some talk that this could hurt a team for enforcing this, like Arkansas could end up hurting them. On the other hand, what did Arkansas just do? The state of Arkansas just passed a legislation taking tax dollars off of this. So if you get an NIL deal with the Razorbacks, you don't have to pay taxes on it.
No, you don't have to pay an income tax on it.
So
exactly.
that's a way to do this. Now, you and I both believe that all of this is real interesting to talk about, and whether they get their money back or not, I don't know what will happen. Here's the issue with right now. Because you got a totally different deal with one of these guys than the other. Madden Ilamaliava, he took this money and never played in a game and then left. Mm-hmm. He collected his money right before he left and he's gone. Okay. Desmond James, you'll remember, he's the guy that came out of nowhere in that bowl game and had that big touchdown catch and he had 130. Yeah. He never had a catch in a game before. And he suddenly had this great game, and he used it to his advantage, and it made the fans so mad when he did that. He apparently, before that bowl game, had signed a new deal with a buyout clause in it saying, you're going to get this much next year. And then he had this big game, and he goes, well, I can get way more than that if I go somewhere else.
Sure, yeah.
But he'd signed the deal. Well, what his lawyer is saying is, wait a minute, he never collected any money on that. So you can't really claim damages if he didn't get any money. It's not like that other situation. But Arkansas is saying, we put a lot of effort and faith into this guy, and we were going to make him into a big-time receiver, and he broke the contract and left, and that does cause damage.
And you can't just make, oh, we're going to sue Madden, but we're not going to do the same for you. Have to set a precedent at this point, right? That if you're going to go after an athlete, you're not going to just pick and choose,
and when you claim damage, I absolutely think you can say, wait a minute, you forced us. The portal opens, you jump into it, you force us to suddenly scramble and try to find a replacement, and we may not be able to get somebody like you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's damage, if you don't end up with an equivalent. So I don't know how this is going to turn out. I was listening to Paul Feinbaum, and he knows nothing. He's always popping off.
Okay, great, yes.
But he said, oh, they'll never collect this money. I don't know how he knows that. But you know an NIL attorney. It's the NIL attorney.
Oh, yeah, I know the one that's representing Dasman.
Yeah. And so you think there's a good chance he'll win it.
Well, because he like, I know the conversation about Tom Mars, right, where he doesn't normally take cases unless he's going to win. In Arkansas, you know, he's representing Arkansas in this, right? That's correct. Yeah, he's representing Arkansas. In both of these cases, I believe, as well. And so Darren, on the other hand here, he's a really good NIL lawyer. He's been on Paul Feinbaum many times. He's talked about NIL, how they can fix the situation. And he feels, you know, when he takes on cases, he feels very strongly he can win them as well. And so it could be very interesting to see two top lawyers go against each other in this.
You and I both believe, while this is all interesting, the ultimate answer is to have a players' union, and you take in.
How do you do that, Mike? How do you have a players' union?
They have to vote. They have to agree. They have to become employees of the university.
There you go. Yep.
And they have to. Then they will have to sign a collective bargaining agreement, yep. and NIL will be included in it.
Yes.
It's not separate now. If they do it this way, it's the revenue sharing money and the NIL is all coming from the school. It's all under control of that. And no one has a bunch more money than everyone else.
And also, that's Darren, to go back to what he said when he was on Paul Feinbaum, he brought that up. He brought that up and said that this is a way to take away those lawsuits and give a little bit more power back to not only just the athletes, you know, and getting what they want out of this, but the schools as well.
Well, to put stability back into it, yes. So that coaches know what they've got.
Yeah.
You don't want to bring a guy in, put all this effort into. Bobby Petrino was developing Iamaleava. He was working with that guy. He believed in him. He was working hard with him, and then all of a sudden it's just for nothing. And you've wasted your time. And you've got to understand how frustrating that is. That would never happen in the NFL.
No, because they have a CBA. They have a players' union.
And this is where I think we're headed, is the NFL model has worked for years. It works. So it's right there in front of you. Don't mess around with all this other stuff. Look at the NFL model, say this is what we're going to do.
I completely agree. But to do that, the most effective way is to find a way to make these athletes employees of the university.
And a lot of schools don't want to do that.
Well, because it brings so many other questions into play. Or if they're full-time employees, what does that mean for health care? If they're state employees, what does that mean for a retirement fund?
Well,
what does
that would have to be worked out.
Exactly.
There's a lot of people that believe, fine, let them make this money, and then let me tell you something. I'm not giving you a free tutor. I'm not giving you, you're going to have to go hire your own tutor if you're about to flunk out. I'm not going to give you a bunch of money to do this or that or health care. You get your own health care.
Right. Well, most schools provide health care to their
students.
They
do, but what if they start charging for that?
I had to pay a part of my student fees was
I was talking to one of the doctors, and he said there's some talk of that.
I believe it. I believe it. Like, there is a lot of other things they'd have to talk about and go through, but I do believe if you can work out the kinks, if you can go through and do that, that is going to be a way where they can unionize and then they can form
I think
CBA.
they need to be reminded of all the value of all the free stuff they've been getting that they don't act like amounts to anything. Yeah. I've said this all along. Anybody that acts like these athletes are getting taken advantage of, they're not paying attention to what's available to them. Compared to an ordinary student, it's not even close.
Yeah, I feel bad for like the band members and the cheerleaders that also contribute to the game day atmosphere. Obviously not as much as the actual players, but contribute to that atmosphere, and they do it for the love of it. They don't get anything. They don't,
These guys were getting, a cost of attendance scholarship includes a lot of stuff. They were already getting extra money, spending money.
Yeah.
They are getting, can now fly you if your mom or your grandmother passes away or something and you don't have any way to get home, they'll do it for you. They used to not be allowed to do that. Now they can do it. Again, you've got this thing like this Jerry Jones Academic Center where you go in there and
it's beautiful.
You've got all this stuff available to you, and they've got tutors that will go in there and work with you. You've got this marvelous eating facility with chefs, and they'll cook you anything you want. And you're acting like that is nothing. Come on.
Yeah, the track and field athletes were telling me, they were like, I was like, oh, how nice is it? And they were like, oh, we get sushi and all this stuff. You have a sushi chef in there? You guys get sushi?
Absolutely.
What?
So, again, nobody's saying they shouldn't get money, but
No.
this $2 million, $5 million, $4 million, and then I take it and then I leave. No.
Yeah,
It's got to go away.
And there needs to be a way where they can enforce these contracts in a good way. How do you do that? You make them employees. You give them a CBA, and then they say, well, you signed this. This is a contract that you guys all decided on, and you signed this, rather than these flimsy contracts they have now. That's how I believe. So we'll see what happens. If Arkansas wins, that could be very huge for the future. They may not need to make them employees of the university if they can find a way to make these contracts stand up a little bit more against what these athletes are doing. Edward Clutch says, I give money to Arkansas Edge, and I'm furious that part of my hard-earned money went to some guy who bolted as soon as he legally could. I hope that Edge sues that guy, his handlers, and even UCLA for tampering.
Well, we don't know that anybody's going to sue anybody. You sue if they refuse to give it back.
Yeah.
Now, we know Desmond James, yes, he's going to fight this. We haven't heard from Iamaleava. We don't know what they're going to do.
No.
But if he refuses to pay it back, then yes, there will be a lawsuit. I don't know who they will sue, whether they'll sue him. I can't imagine they would sue his agent or the new school. They're just going to sue him.
Yeah, just him. You took the money.
Yeah, you took it, and we want it back. We want a part of it back because you signed on the dotted line that you would do this.
Absolutely. Whippersnapper says, we reportedly gave a guy that was here for 4 months and bolted with $500K, but we couldn't give that to Luke Haas, for example, to stay here for another year.
That's a totally different issue, and I want to explain this. What happened with Luke Haas is what I was told was that he went to them with his contract demands. This is what I want for next year.
Yeah.
And Petrino's looking at all of this and trying to balance it out, and he said, no, he's not worth that. We can save that money and spend it in other areas. And they did. They went out and got some other tight ends that they feel better about. Honestly, they feel very good about their tight ends. So that's not somebody just going, I refuse to give him money, but I'm going to give money to this guy. Petrino liked Iamaleava and felt like he could develop him. He looked at Luke Haas and said he's asking too much money. And that kind of stuff is going to continue to go on, even with revenue sharing. You're going to have coaches, and that's why we were talking about agents. I don't know if an agent will get involved, but you've got this general manager that's going to sit down with them, and either the athlete, his parents, or an agent is going to go in and say, we think he should get $40,000 a year next year, not 20. And then they're going to go, oh, we looked at this, and the 40 is about all we can give. And then you have to decide what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. That stuff is really decided by the coaches. They're the ones that have to figure out what's the best overall way to take all of this money and make it fit and give us the best product. So it's not a matter of looking at some guy. I mean, I know you may feel like Luke Haas should have stayed here, but Petrino didn't, and he's the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, and also I will say this, because
It's Haas.
It's Haas. You're good. Luke has the football, but something that Sam Pittman broke this down when all of this was going on, where you saw guys hitting the portal and people are going, wait, why are they hitting the portal? And if you remember, before the Liberty Bowl, Sam Pittman was very honest and got picked up by some national news outlets about being honest about the situation, about sitting down with these guys and going, hey, we may not feel like, Luke, sorry, we love you, but we may not want to pay you that, because we can take that $500,000 and pay it out to 2 guys.
Yeah.
That we feel we could have 2 for the price of 1.
Or maybe
maybe
Petrino said, I want this kid from California, and I think he's worth it.
Exactly, and so that's exactly what. But it's one of those things where it's okay. These are all the guys. This is how much money we have, and we've got to figure out how to spread it out amongst the guys we want, amongst the guys we need. And maybe, can we make it stretch? Sam's used that word a lot, stretch the money, right? Can we make it stretch? Can you get a guy that maybe is not asking for $500,000, but because the tape you've watched on him, he's really good. Is he another Andrew Armstrong?
Now,
is he another Isaac TeSlaa?
What we're going to see if we do a show like this, or if you listen to sports talk radio or anything where fans give their opinions, I think with revenue sharing, and if you do have some kind of arrangement where you've got a salary cap and the coaches have to figure out the best use of something, you're going to see fans complaining because they always have their best. He's my favorite guy, and your favorite guy.
He's worth this amount of money.
I think you should have given the money to him. I'm sorry, you're not going to be considered there. They're good. The coaches are the ones that are going to decide that. They're not always going to decide on your favorite player.
And the general manager is also going to get in that conversation and go, okay, who do you guys want? I'm going to now negotiate and see if we can. They have their best interest in mind too, right? Just like the player does. They're going to try and see if they can get the best deal and get a guy that maybe you think is worth $500,000, but they're going to try and get him for $300,000, or whatever it is. So I think it's going to be interesting. And you mentioned a sports talk show. We're going to plan to do that, I think, Mike. We're going to plan to do where we are going to get fans' views and takes on different things. Kind of a little bit like Ask Mike, a little bit, but more interactive with the audience. That's coming soon here on the Pig Trail Nation. DWR asks, what are the chances Arkansas gets any money back from these players who left? I thought they were all paid up front. I doubt they get a single dime back.
Yeah, again, that's the Feinbaum thing. And I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. It's going to be interesting to see how that works out. Maybe they don't get anything. Maybe it's fruitless. Maybe they pay the lawyer a bunch of money and then they lose. That's always a chance you take when you
or
sue
maybe
somebody.
They settle, or maybe
there's a settlement somewhere.
I mean,
I think Juracek it's not just the money. I think he's sending a message. We've had enough.
Yeah.
If you're going to ask us for this amount of money, we have to be able to count on you.
Yeah.
And we're not going to start giving you guys big amounts of money just so for you could jump and leave. We put effort into you. We developed you. I mean, Desmond James may have not gotten his money yet, but they worked with him before that bowl game. They were developing him for next year, and it paid off. And what did he do? You made me better. Now I'm gone.
Bye. See ya. Thanks.
That's very frustrating for a coach.
I think it's frustrating for all of college athletics right now because they're all dealing with that. And every, I saw so many fans come out of different programs who said, man, I wish our AD was like Hunter Yurachek, because you've got to set a precedent. You've got to lay down the law and say, we're not going to take this.
I don't think there's any question. By and large, a great percentage of the fan base, not connected to Arkansas, it favors this.
Oh, absolutely.
They are tired of this.
So even if you don't get a dime, you've set a precedent that, listen, we are not afraid. We are not going to sit back and go, oh, okay, we made you sign something, but it's okay. You can go off to whatever school. No, Arkansas is going to say, take a stand. Now, will it backfire? Hopefully not. Hopefully not. I hope not. I hope they do get some money back or something happens in that situation, but we'll keep you updated on it. Popular Porkster says, I know you said you're not a big NFL draft guy, but to you, what was the biggest thing about this year's draft?
Well, obviously, nationally, all that Shedeur Sanders stuff.
Oh, yeah, the Shedeur Sanders stuff, yeah.
Because of the way it played out, and everybody had an opinion on it, and what's his name, Mr. Genius guy.
Mel Kiper.
Mel Kiper's just Mel Kipering. Like
he had a meltdown.
Yeah, he had a meltdown. And when you looked at all of that stuff, what was the end result of that? He finally gets drafted by, the Browns?
The Browns, yeah.
And what does his dad say right off the bat? Well, I'm going to meet with them, because I want them to know they're not just bringing in some second-rate guy. So he's already sending signals. You better make this guy the starter. And does he not understand that's what's causing this to happen?
He drafted another quarterback too, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Exactly. I mean, you can't just. It's like he's oblivious to what NFL owners, GMs, and how they react to this stuff. They don't want some guy's parent to come in and start telling him, hey, he has to be the starter. I think he's hurting him in this situation. I do. So that was the big story. But I don't care about all of that, very honestly. It was interesting, but it wasn't a big deal to me. I just kept thinking, wow, this is goofy. But the big story, obviously, was
with Arkansas.
With Isaac TeSlaa going first, the first Arkansas, and Detroit traded up to get him, and it just stunned us all, because he went ahead of, He's the first guy. Landon Jackson doesn't go first. Now, if you watch Landon Jackson, I don't know if he had a preference for who he went, but he was just boo-hooing when he was finally drafted. I think he just wanted to be drafted.
Yes, yeah.
And that's what most guys do. They might have a favorite, but they're so happy when their name is called. They're all fired up.
Oh, Landon did not care. He said, I don't care if I go first round, second round, third. I just want to hear my name
But
called.
imagine if you're Isaac TeSlaa and you're just tooling around and you know that you've done pretty well in the combine and all this stuff, and all of a sudden your name gets called by the team that you've been a fan of since you were about 3 years old, and you're like, whoa. And their GM said, well, I thought it was weird. He came in here to meet with us and he was wearing this funky Lions jersey that looked like you buy it at a mall or something. And he said, I thought it was kind of cheesy. And then I asked him, he said, oh, I've had this since the 8th grade.
Yeah.
And it was then when they realized just how much he is a fan of this team. So how lucky is that? How lucky? Now, here's the thing. Here's what we all thought. We all thought, okay, this guy he had these amazing numbers at the combine, okay? And that's what was driving this. That's why I didn't think he'd go this high, but I said, yeah, he's going to get drafted and probably ahead of Armstrong because of these combine numbers.
Yeah.
That was not it. The GM basically said, I went to the Senior Bowl and I was watching it, and there was this big physical receiver that was just pushing D-backs around. And I said, we need a guy like that to block these guys because it was driving them crazy. And he said, we need somebody right now that can be physical, that can block like that.
And on special teams.
And said,
too.
we can use him on special teams.
Yeah.
When you're going to draft somebody that high, you don't want them sitting around on the practice squad for 2 years. You want to put them in right away to get your money's worth out of them. So you're looking for versatility is what you're looking. You're looking at a guy that can do a lot of different things. And that's what got him where he is right now, was his versatility. Now, he said, look, we're going to develop him as a receiver. We've got time to do that. But while we're doing that, we're going to use him to knock defensive backs silly. And we're going to use him out on special teams to run over people.
Yep.
So it's a great story.
You would know that if you sat down. I interviewed Isaac before the draft, and that was one of the things he brought up. I said, what are you hearing from scouts? And they said, the one thing they're hearing is versatility, versatility, versatility. They like how good I am on special teams, and they like how passionate I am about being in the game wherever they need me.
Right.
So it doesn't mean I have to be their top receiver. I just
But
want
it
to help
wasn't
where I'm
this
used.
thing that we kept hearing about, oh, these amazing combine numbers.
Right.
It had to be more than that.
Well, that was why he started showing up in a lot of these mock drafts higher than a guy like Andrew Armstrong, was because of what he did at the combine. He tested really well, and so he showed up a lot higher than we thought he was. I just love, Mike, you mentioned he had this jersey since he was in 8th grade. I mentioned it in our interview with him. I said, I see you on a couple of Lions projected mock drafts, right, as a pick to the Lions. He kind of had a smile on. And I brought that up with him because we knew he was a big Lions fan. He is from Michigan, and so he has been a big Lions fan for his entire life. And when Otis first interviewed him, Otis Kirk, our recruiting expert, when Otis interviewed him about coming to Arkansas and put that on our website, do you know what he was wearing in the picture on our website?
That jersey.
That jersey. So
right.
It's a great story, and I love Isaac. Congratulations to him, Landon, and even all of the guys who were signed as undrafted free agents. Big Pig AidSap says, sorry, I'm laughing. The first hog off the board is the one Fat Butt refused to use because he gave all of his targets to Rock Hands Broden.
Well, I'm assuming that since he used the term fat butt, he's not referring to Taylor Green because no one's ever accused him of being fat.
Yeah, no.
I
no
don't
way.
know anyone that's accused Bobby Petrino of being fat, so fat bust must be Sam Pittman. Now, this is a really good example of what I call Pittman derangement syndrome.
Oh, I love that. PDS.
People that have to throw Pittman into issues that have nothing to do with Pittman. Yeah. I'm going to bring him into this. It doesn't have anything to do with this particular subject, but I'm going to bring him in because I promise you, Sam Pittman was not sitting there going, "Who are we going to target on this play?" You've got an offensive coordinator, but more importantly, you've got a quarterback. You know who really targets in the final analysis? The quarterback. He's the one that looks out there and goes, That guy's open. That's not. I don't know about that. Boom, I'm throwing here. Guess what he did in fall ball or August camp last year? He was throwing to Broden all the time. Why was he doing that? Because he's 6'6", 6'7", and he's fast. And he kept thinking, this is the way to do it. And Petrino kept going. I think Petrino kept thinking, he's dropping passes, but he's not focused. He's better than that. The very first day that we went out there, the very first practice in August, he threw, Broden got open, and he made a one-handed catch that was just amazing. And we all thought, wow, this guy. And then it never happened after that. Now, they eventually gave up on him. But guess what? He signed a free agent contract too. And they're talking about, we know that they're talking about he had all kinds of problems within his family. He'd had some deaths and things like that, and it affected him emotionally. But they're basically saying, we know the tools are there.
Yeah.
I don't think Bobby Petrino is just goofy and he's just sitting there going, oh, throw the ball to this rock hands guy and let's ignore this other guy over here that's better. I think I'm not going to sit here and second guess Petrino like that. He's done it. He's been there. Doesn't mean he's not capable of making a mistake. But you can't sit there and do that with. This is what some fans do. If a coach doesn't do exactly specifically what you want in a certain situation, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Or if you got Pittman derangement syndrome, you just put him into every issue. It doesn't matter what it is. I'll throw Pittman into this, you know. And so I think I'm not second guessing all of that. Basically what happened was when, and I think it was Satinha, right? He hit the portal at the end of the regular season. That opened things up for TeSlaa. They started playing him more, and he did. He responded in the Missouri game, almost won the game for him. Ball got tipped away at the last minute. It was in his hands. He would have caught it, but it got tipped away. Then he has that bowl game where he looks really good. So he did that, and then he goes to the combine and does what he did at the combine. He goes to the Senior Bowl and impresses, you know, all these GMs
really
that are
good
watching.
In the Senior Bowl, yeah.
So he came on strong, and you give him credit for working and doing the things that he needed to do, but that doesn't mean they were all stupid for not throwing him the ball more earlier. I just don't believe that.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. It's hard to, again, I saw you kind of, because this was on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
You argued with this on Twitter, and I saw a lot of people saying, oh, well, it's great to say in 2020, right? Hindsight is 2020, but we also haven't seen what Isaac is going to do in the league, right?
That's right.
We haven't seen that just yet. So hold your horses, calm down, everybody. Calm down.
And certainly you don't blame that on Pittman because he's got virtually nothing to do with it.
I mean, you know, he does coach the entire team, but that's
yes, but you don't bring a guy like Bobby Petrino in as your offensive coordinator and then nitpick with him over who should catch balls.
Oh yeah, I mean that's true. I agree with you there. Pig's Feet asks, are you a little surprised that TeSlaa was drafted and Armstrong wasn't, Mike?
I thought they both would get drafted. I thought they would both go lower. I actually think Armstrong's better off where he is as a free agent rather than being a 6th or 7th round guy. I think he'll probably get a little bit better money. Look, here's the thing, what they apparently looked at a lot. They looked at the fact that he had 1 touchdown catch, and that scared them off. Well, were they not paying attention to what he did his first year when he came to Arkansas, in which he had 5? Were they not looking at the fact that in 2 years, he had almost 2,000 yards in receptions in 2 years? Something like, I don't know, over 100, I forget what the catches were, but it's a crazy number of catches in 2 years. And he's not going up against Elmer Fudd. He's going up against some of the best defensive backs in college football because he's playing in the SEC. And he did all that. You can't convince me that he could do all of that at the college level, but when he gets to the NFL level, he's like, oh, I'm in over my head now.
Yeah, now I can't
do it
like that. Yeah.
So I think he'll be successful. I think people are going to look at the Dolphins and say they got him in a steal, and then he won't get a lot of money initially, but then if he performs the way he should and he sticks around, he'll get money the second time around.
Yeah, and the other thing you didn't mention there was how he tested as well, because me and him talked about that and sat down, and the whole big thing was he was worried about his 40-yard dash time at the combine. He improved on it at Pro Day, but you know that was one of the things that scouts were bringing up is you know we want to see that speed, and He's like, look, I'll do whatever I can for you. Even he's like, I will make sure that if you put me on the field, I will make that catch. I will make that catch. So we'll see what they both do. I mean, again, it surprised me, not that Armstrong wasn't drafted, it surprised me that TeSlaa, like you said, was taken over Landon Jackson, who was projected to be a second, third, the highest Razorback taken. So that was kind of interesting. KY Hogg wants to know, what is the holdup on Cal adding one more high-scoring player? Once again, the media has been talking about this for over a week, and once again, we hear nothing.
Well,
KY Hogg, he moves in the shadows. We told you that.
There's a lot of people that were talking, a lot of fans that were talking last week about possible guys out there that might end up here. And this Auburn kid was one of them. But you said on this show, he's not one of them. You said that.
I did say that because I had a good source that said he was looking out west.
Yeah.
And I went, where could that be? And I brought up USC to this source.
And he
I have
ends
to
up with
apologize.
Musselman.
I have to apologize to this source because I thought he was pulling a fast one on me. I was like, nah, he's not going to end up at USC, is he? Is he? And he did. He committed there today.
So he was never in the mix. You don't believe?
No. Well, I think he was being looked at. I do, but I didn't think he was going to choose Arkansas.
Here's part of the issue, and I don't have your sources on this, but I'm told that part of the problem here is that when they have this core of guys back, and we both believe Carter Knox is coming back.
It's the same as Kevin's. Kevin has different sources. Kevin McPherson, he said he's been hearing the same
He's
stuff.
been looking really good, but he's going to come back. So you've got this core of players that all, you can look at what they average, their playing time, their score points per game, and you can assume that's all going to go up for them in their second year. There may not be room for another guy like this because supposedly some of these guys, and you told me this, some of them have come in and said, it's not so much the money. I want guaranteed playing time. I want to play 25 minutes guaranteed.
Yeah.
What coach is going to guarantee you're going to play 25 minutes no matter what?
Well, they can't do that with the talent they have coming back. If you're Coach Cal, you're going, I can't guarantee you that.
So what's happening is a lot of these guys are ending up at a place where they don't have a lot and where they're welcoming this person saying, yeah, you can become half of our offense.
Sure, yeah.
We want your 18, 22 points a game because we don't have that right now. At Arkansas, you don't need that, and you're definitely not going to promise a guy 25 minutes of playing time because if he doesn't play well, what are you going to play him anyway? And that's idiotic.
Yeah, that's silly. I mean, they're just looking at that and going, no, we can't promise that. So go to a place where you can be the star.
So I think you believe there's still some stuff out there, but it's entirely possible that when Carter Knox comes back, that's it. That's the roster.
I don't know if that's going to be completely it. I just think we're not going to hear anything for a couple weeks. I think it's going to be really quiet now. Don't be stressed. If you're KY Hogg, don't be stressed.
Well, he's around all these Kentucky fans.
He is. So he's getting I understand why he's getting a little stressed, but I don't think you should be stressed if you don't hear much. There's a name that's been floating around in my circles with my sources, and that is the former FSU guard in Jameer Watkins. Mm-hmm. And so there are some rumblings that he could be looking to come back to college. And then there was talk about this
player that was going to redo his. He would declare as a 2026 guy. 2025 instead of 2026.
Yes, yeah, reclassify.
Reclassify.
So there's a couple of things going on behind the scenes. Don't be stressed if we don't have. I don't expect us to have news this week. I don't expect us to have news next week. If we do, great. But if we don't be stressed out. So that's my official stance on all that. T.L. Slayton says, "What a turnaround by Arkansas's softball team." I'm so glad somebody asked about them. They've been quietly moving up for several weeks, and it's been impressive to watch. And today, if you don't know this already, Softball America ranking them number 2 in their poll, which is the highest ranking.
And I got some pushback because I said that after that.
What?
I went on and said baseball and softball appear to be going in different directions. And
yeah.
Well, but I got some pushback. One guy, you know that emoji on where they have the guy and he looks confused, like, huh?
Yeah.
And I'm going, well, okay, Here's what I'm saying is, one has lost 3 straight series, the other's won 5 straight.
Yeah.
That's kind of called, that's the definition of different direction.
Yeah, so one's doing that and one's doing that. Doesn't mean this one could do this, but it's just.
It's just right now, that's where it's headed. Now, look, what they've done is really interesting. Keep in mind they started at 1-5. That sounds almost like the basketball team.
Well, I said that on this show. I said,
Yeah.
doesn't that remind you of
But
somebody?
after that 1-5 start, they won 2 of 3 from number 7 Tennessee, swept Kentucky, took 2 of 3 from number 2 Florida, 2 of 3 from number 10 South Carolina, and then 2 of 3 from number 1 or 2, depending on which bowl,
you look
Texas
at,
A&M. And so, again, today they've got their highest ranking ever. It's just the Softball America poll. They're not as high in the other one.
Well, that hasn't come out yet, so we could. I mean,
Well, I don't think they will. But number 2, that's incredible. And they've done all of this because they just keep winning. And look, you look at what they have left. They've got 1 series left at home against LSU. LSU's, I think they're ranked somewhere 15th.
They were ranked last week. We'll see. I mean, I don't think they won't be ranked this week.
They're currently 10th in the SEC. Again, this team started, after that 0-5 start, they were 10th. And they are a game out of 4th place. That's how much they've moved up in 5 weeks. And they kind of did it kind of quietly. They caught everybody off guard.
They did. There are some people out there that are still going, wait, Arkansas, whoa.
Yeah, they have the top hitter in the SEC. Mm-hmm. They have one of the top pitchers in the SEC. Mm-hmm. So you may have a situation, you could have a situation where you've got softball going on campus at the end of the year, and baseball has to go somewhere else if they don't turn this around. They might be on a 2 seed somewhere else.
I think softball, maybe this is too early to say this, but I think softball's a lock for a national seed.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that because I think they've proven that they are a national seed.
So you got to give them a lot of credit if they pull that off.
I mean, no one thought they would be able to, they were going to, maybe a regional, but hosting a super too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty incredible from the way they started.
It would help make up for the one they had a few years ago where Texas came in here and embarrassed them.
Oh, that was horrible.
That was terrible.
Hey,
so
maybe they can.
Still waiting for this team to get to Oklahoma City, but it could happen.
It could. Well, they haven't ever done it before, Mikey. So that would be pretty huge if they could do it this year. I think give your clap to Courtney Deifel and her squad for being able to turn that around. We'll see what happens with them this week as they go into their final regular series against LSU. We're going to have so much more to talk about when it comes to softball and baseball, even football, and hopefully some basketball news to talk about. But we'll see you next week to answer more of your questions.